Okay, and we're about ready to get started. I am your host, the Strange West, also known as Josh. I'm joined by my co-host, Kurgan, also known as HeroQuest fans, and you can find him at Twitch at TV/HeroQuest fans. We have a special guest today, somebody I've been looking forward to talking to, and that is Amalgamash. You can find him at YouTube. I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong here, but that would be youtube.com, and just search up Amalgamash.
Of course, that is the Doug Hopkins quest. Of course, we do have our Avalon Hill. I don't know if you call him a mole or a plant, but he is definitely a guy. There are some contacts that we have, not to out anybody, but that kind of help out the community, kind of checking in on things, and
Communities. There are moles everywhere.
yeah, giving us a little bit of insight. The I guess the main thing to realize out of all of it is that they do have people that are listening to the community, interacting with us, and there's the link. I'll throw that in the Twitch chat. Oh wow, yeah, you're like stretched out. You're like
Yeah,
an anamorphic DVD that they throw onto like a regular TV, and you're just like, I am large.
that was my fix, because unless I put it on my main screen, which he would show up twice, for some reason Streamlabs
There we go.
refused to capture him. So
Yeah,
it was like it was only
you're gonna
showing like
go
his
in.
eyes at one point in time. I was like, oh, we can't do this. So I just blew him up.
It's greatest asset. So we're
I've closed
going
the
in, going
window
full,
where I can
full
see
throttle.
that, so I can't see the preview and trying to save on some bandwidth somehow, but in case that would help, but I'm gonna have to check it out now afterwards.
Yeah, it's just a small fix. I think all that was wrong is that one of the letters was kind of vague. I know vagueness, right? And then there was a trap that they forgot to color in. So, oh, they changed it to a completely different trap. Surprise. Let's see.
So
Oh, yeah. So the Frozen Horror, I think there's different tendencies in the world of HeroQuest fandom these days. Wouldn't you say, Amalgamash? It was probably as many views as there are people, but there's definitely two views when all this remake business started. One was to say that, man, I hope they don't screw up this franchise like so many other franchises have gotten screwed up, not just by one company, but it's like you get this nostalgic property. It's like, is it going to still resonate with the fans that liked it before? Is it going to introduce itself to new people, or is it just going to kind of like fail to please anybody? And so far, HeroQuest has been pretty good. It's kind of come back, even though it's still small. Um, it's not like GI Joe level or Transformers or Star Wars level like media saturation, and maybe that's a good thing because some of these franchises they get too big, really, and there's just too much, and the quality kind of suffers. But then I think the other side of it is just that, well, is it going to be enough? Is it? I mean, once the nostalgia dies down, is anybody going to care anymore? I mean, is it going to appeal? Is there going to be new content? Are people going to be energized to make their own content? So when stuff like this comes out, it's kind of just a little bit of a mixed reaction in my head, which is one is like, yes, great. But then it's like, oh, but is this going to be accepted? Is it going to lead to more stuff? Or when should they hold back and when should they go for it?
Well,
I guess it's pretty open ended.
I was unaware uh, that Games Workshop had. I didn't know how all of the properties were handled
Yeah,
when
that's
I was
complicated.
playing the game. And
Mhm.
after I was done and I knew that it was an old game and it wasn't in print anymore, and hey, the next time I go to a junk store, look out for copies and stuff like that. I had no idea where the companies had gone or what they were doing now or anything like that because I never got into Warhammer. I never got into
Yeah, me neither.
any of the other stuff. I didn't know what I would be looking for or what questions to ask. And one day I went into our new game store that opened locally and I saw some Warhammer stuff. And I'm like, okay, it's Warhammer 40K, big deal. Where are the Reaper minis? Yeah, so the Reaper minis were the one thing that I did like because I always liked getting
I love those.
miniatures just for no reason other than they looked neat.
I'll
Um,
find a use for him.
exactly. And I saw a faction for the Warhammer. I think it was 40K, but they were Chaos Warriors, and I'm like, that looks a lot like the Chaos Warriors from HeroQuest, and they're
Yeah.
even called Chaos Warriors. So I
Slaves
looked
to
them up,
Darkness.
and I'm
That
like,
sounds familiar.
holy crap, that's what they did with the Chaos Warriors. And then I learned that, hey, HeroQuest was a thing. It was still a thing, but Chaosium had the rights, and it was not the same HeroQuest. So you talk
Nope.
about it coming back, and it's like I can see those being two prevalent views. But my view is it's got to diverge again. It didn't go anywhere. It already got acquired. It already hit a low point because it was like, okay, now this is set in the world of Gloranthia, and it's not anything like the game that you know, and the only reason that you're gonna buy it is because it says Hero Quest. And I
The name. Yeah.
never heard of this company or where did this come from? Where did it go? It's the
Yeah.
Cotton Eye Joe of RPGs now.
Quick question, because I'm confused too. So the other Hero Quest that people talk about, this RPG, is that now called Hero Wars, or is it called something else now? Or
Hasbro
how it?
bought the rights to HeroQuest proper from Chaosium so that they can use these properties. The only
Yeah.
properties that didn't translate from Games Workshop to Chaosium would have been the Famir and all of the other existing IPs that they use, such as their whole Chaos faction, their Chaos Warriors, Chaos
Mhm.
Sorcerers, and all of that. Their Skaven.
Well, yeah.
Chaosium wouldn't have had access to that, and so Hasbro wouldn't have been able to acquire the rights from Chaosium for that. But everything else they could have done, which means that
Yeah.
Chaosium could have reprinted this exact same game 20 years ago, 10 years ago, whenever they acquired the
Shoot.
property.
Oh, what a missed opportunity. Because
So
that
when it
I would have
comes
jumped on that.
it coming back, instead of being like, "Oh no, is this gonna suck?" It's, "All right, no matter what they do, at least it's not the Chaosium tabletop role playing," which might have been great. Don't get me wrong. I might have to go back and add that stuff to my ever growing, depressing collection of HeroQuest memorabilia and goods, but for now,
Let's
doesn't seem
let's
like
con-
it's at all the same.
Sorry for jumping in, but let's confuse people even more. What is this TheQuest or whatever? There was like a Game Zone
Oh,
Anniversary Edition, and then now there's
tseuquest or
this
whatever.
Two Quest. Yeah, it's Quest spelled backwards and then Quest.
Uh-huh.
It was
So,
like a remake proper. They're going to use the concepts of Hero Quest but make it into a modern game, like with a
it
giant box. And
it's what
then they couldn't.
happens when
Yeah.
ambitious and talented Pokemon modders create a
Oh
game and they
no.
advertise that they're making the game, they get shut down. No matter how beautiful it looks and how on point it is with mechanics
Yeah.
and fan service and intent, the IP is like, wait, hold up, wait, what are you doing? And it's got to get shut down. So
But
I
they're
don't know.
trying to sell what they have left. Isn't that what happened?
I don't
Or
follow it, so I'm not
what
sure
may
what they're
happen?
doing now. I think they
I'm.
definitely changed it enough as to not be held
Uh,
responsible for.
So just
yeah.
to elaborate, what and to give more perspective, because I'm probably new to that whole thing. What was the concept of this? Like this whole deal? Like what were they trying to do with it? Like what
Well,
was the point of the game?
they were
What
trying. It was the anniversary of HeroQuest, the game from '89, and they were going to bring like a new edition of the game. I don't know if they had full permission for it, or there was a scramble over the copyright of the name and the concepts. And yes, and like you said, some of it was tangled up with Games Workshop because Games Workshop designed the original miniatures.
and they
This other
are.
company was going to do it, and then Hasbro realized, presumably, that oh shoot, we're going to miss out on all this. So they got it back legally, and they were able to prevent this other company from doing it. And so now they're scrambling to try to turn their assets into something else, which may or may not ever come out. But then Hasbro got their foot in the door. They did their pledge drive, released this remake, and now it's gone to retail, and now we're getting expansions.
Hasbro's got the IP.
Yeah,
Chaosium has nothing, and TheRantCast is its own. Watch,
TheRantCast.
watch me now. Unrelated,
Funny
completely unrelated. Oh, I'm sorry.
air
Hold
quote.
on, hold on. I gotta watch
Hulk
me now.
quotes.
Unrelated
Or quotes.
um, to HeroQuest in any way, shape, or form.
Right.
Which that's fair. I mean, it's just a hero's quest. I mean, go ahead and make your games. Make your
Yeah.
games. Everybody,
There's
do it.
also a comic series called Elf Quest, which has nothing to do with Quest Pack for the Elf.
And
They
there's
had to change
also
that name. Yeah.
you
There's
could
a lot of like
probably.
confusing
Well,
things.
you mentioned like it's what happens when Pokemon modders get involved or something like that. And I was like, the first thing that popped in my head was like the barbarian throwing like some form of Pokeball or something. I was like, oh my god, what is this?
I shared a meme
Yeah, I
about
saw
this.
that. He throws a barrel and it smashes open. And it's like, Goblin, I choose you. And he's like
Yeah.
crawling out of the wreckage. It's just
I'm
bizarre.
not mad. I want this character. Make it happen, Avalon Hill. I want the monster trainer character, and their abilities are throw Goblin Ball, throw Orc Ball. This isn't sounding right. I'm gonna backtrack all this now.
Orc balls. Ladies and
We
gentlemen,
are.
clip that out.
No, keep going. Keep going.
Why is
Do it.
Why is it always me? Skeleton
Do
Ball. There you go. Have fun with that one. Throw Skeleton Bone. I'm done. I'm gonna stop now.
yeah.
And he could
I'd
have like
play
a
it.
baseball cap, but it would be like made out of like leather, like hand sewn together or something, like fur on the back of it.
Yeah, I'd play it. I
I'd
would
play it.
definitely.
Well, but the point is, from what I saw, because I got into it very late. Thankfully, I didn't pledge any money or anything for this other HeroQuest that didn't happen. But they had just like tons of miniatures. Like you see the red, you see the yellow or the white and the green, and then you see this big, massive gray because they've got tons of like supplemental characters. And the box was just, it looked like an entire shelf of miniatures they had crammed into this gigantic box. It was like, wow, there's going to be all these extra character classes and all these new spells. And actually, one thing that I picked up on is with the magic, instead of having the 4 elemental characters for the earth, fire, water, and wind or air, they had the alchemical symbols, which I had done in my demagikified mod because I was making this like alternative, and I was like, oh, sweet. But yeah, it looked like it was going to be very complicated, almost like Gloomhaven. Like if you've ever
Okay.
seen Gloomhaven, it's got that
Yeah.
huge box, and it's like, man, somewhere in here there's a basic game. Because the whole thing about HeroQuest is it's supposed to be like a simple introduction to fantasy tabletop gaming, and it can be its own thing. But they were just like, we're going to take that idea to the next level and make it give you everything possible that you can think of. Is this ever going to get done?
It looks good. It looks fantastic.
It looks awesome.
I'm
Yeah.
looking at it right now. The minis look great. There's a great aesthetic going on. It's consistent. There's all
What?
kinds of different races.
How much is it going to be? Like $500?
You can pre-order a copy right now for 110 euros.
Okay. So like, what was that, $200
It's not an
Canadian
unfair price. Well, to me,
for what you're getting?
I think
Once
that'd be
again,
worth it considering the price of a lot of most board games nowadays, like big
yeah,
yeah,
complex
it's like
board
hundred
games.
bucks and up.
Like I said, my friend's a huge like collector of those things. And, like, what is it, the whole Battlestar Galactica board game is really expensive, and he does a lot of those Warhammer ones too. So
and this comes with
And what?
more. It comes with 8 adventurers and 3 antagonists and 35 henchmen and 48 scenery elements and 100.
oh,
It's got 6 of each elemental spell card. Oh, but then it
Yep.
only has 6 chaos spells. It's interesting that they
Ah,
chose to keep the terminology to chaos.
interesting.
Oh,
Yeah. Well,
I'm guessing the
supposedly
term chaos is
chaos
taken
is
then.
okay. It's just chaos warrior they can't
Oh,
use. Slaves to darkness, all that stuff. I don't know. I guess yeah. With Hasbro, they were able to unentangle themselves enough from the um, Games Workshop stuff that they could just do it on their own. But see,
I
what I'm
would.
wondering is
Wasn't
why. I
hard.
mean, I'm sure it's this big legal thing, but if they could come back and do a collaborative project, I know some people are really pissed off at Games Workshop for their sales or marketing practices these days,
Mm.
but if they could come back just for nostalgia's sake to do some type of collaborative edition or product, I think that'd be super super cool. And it's not impossible like people say. I mean, when you think about it, because how did they make that Warhammer 40,000 Risk happen? because I mean that's Hasbro and that's Games Workshop. So somebody with insider knowledge, tell me why I'm wrong.
I
Off
don't
the
think you're
record if you
wrong.
want.
I'm sure that it's a big, difficult task that,
Yeah.
they probably have better things to do
Well,
in
yeah,
their
probably.
world, like
Because
walk their dogs.
Games Workshop, I mean, they've got their thing going. They've got Age of Sigmar, they've got 40,000, and these are war games that are based on collecting and painting, and yes, also playing. But they've already got their loyal fan base. They don't need probably to do a collaboration like this. But
Plus,
I'm
do
just
you
thinking for the
really
sake
want
of
to
the
take
fans,
this thing that, as you said,
it's
hopefully they
for
don't
the
screw it
people.
up? Will it be better?
Yeah.
Will it be worse? And then put it in the hands of a collaboration with people that probably aren't even the same people in any way that worked on
No.
the
Nobody.
original.
I don't think anybody's the same except for maybe Stephen Baker from the earliest days. I could be wrong. Maybe there's somebody else in the background that just hasn't come forward.
I'm
Well,
sure
but
there's a few.
I hear what you're saying though. There's people that because when you think back to HeroQuest, like if I'd never had White Dwarf magazine, I didn't live in the UK, I didn't have that connection, but I've gone back and I've read some of the stuff now, and it's like they did the same stuff with HeroQuest and Space Crusade, which was the other game. I mean, that was like a derivative board game based on Space Hulk and Warhammer 40,000. Just like HeroQuest, you could say in some ways was a derivative of the Warhammer Fantasy World in board game form. Is that yeah, these games were supposed to be self-contained, it's all in the box, beginners can play this, kids can play this, and then the serious hardcore collector painter people can play the war game that's for teens and grown-ups. But um what they did in the magazine is they would say, hey everybody, you remember how awesome HeroQuest is? Well, guess what, if you take this particular set of miniatures from our Citadel catalog, here's a bonus quest that we designed, and here's some custom rules. And they did that for both HeroQuest and Space Crusade. So it was like kind of that hook to say, well, yeah, you can make up your own quests, you can do whatever you want, but guess what? If you buy our miniatures, you can do this, and you wouldn't have to. You could just say, yeah, the Chaos Warlock is, the Skaven Warrior, or the what was it? What was that guy's name? Pierre Chancer, the Knight Errant. Like, there's all these characters. The Rat Ogre. They did all this stuff. But yeah, it's like they would just promote it and say, well, you don't have to get into this other collecting hobby, but if you want to, we can reel you in. So I guess you'd have, if they did that again, you'd have people that would just say, hell no, I'm sick of you guys. And then you'd have other people that say, well, of course, I do that anyway. Got to get my plastic crack.
So real quick question. This is for both of you, because me and Kurgan kind of, I guess we kind of fall on the same line of this, but I kind of want to see where you both kind of stand anyway. As far as it goes with HeroQuest today, and where Avalon Hill's kind of been bringing it in, and this could go as far as marketing, the development of the game, now with the remake of HeroQuest. How do you both think it's been going so far? And what could they improve on? What have they done great so far? Because that's been kind of my talking point, or wanted to be my talking point, kind of with this podcast.
Kurgan,
That's good. You
you
want me to go
first.
first? Okay.
Absolutely.
What has gone right? All right. I think the general tendency to keep things the same was a good move, because I think the primary audience for the return of HeroQuest are those nostalgic fans who are now adults, most of them with families, and they want to introduce it to their kids once they know it exists, of course, because most of them either have forgotten all about it or they've scrambled onto eBay to get their beat up classic box. So I think just kind of letting people know, hey, it's still the HeroQuest you remember, as much as we can possibly bring it to you, with a couple improvements in terms of build quality. I think the plastic furniture was an interesting case. Most people have praised that, and I think that's generally good because cardboard can get beat up. But then it's like, oh, it doesn't quite look as colorful. I got to paint it, and I don't want to paint it. A lot of people were like that. It's like, I'm not a painter. I don't want to embarrass myself. So I think that general tendency to keep it the same is good. Now, I didn't feel the same way with the Frozen Horror with that, but we can talk about that later. I think other things they've done right. I think listening to the fans, like at least because there's a lot of companies that say that, oh, we listen to the fans, we care about the fans, we care about our customers, and they really don't. I mean, as long as you're buying, you can shut the hell up for all we care. At least, and they don't just give the impression that they're actually listening, but like people will say, oh, you forgot this, and then they'll fix it like right away and tell everybody, hey, check it out. So I like that. I like that idea of interaction. So community wise, that's very positive. The other good thing that they've done, I think, both recreating classic properties and introducing new stuff is good. And they've kind of done a tightrope walk with that by every time they introduce something new, they don't try to just jam it right in the center of everything else. They kind of like put it off to the side and say, well, you could use this in your adventure if you want to, but we're not going to like force it front and center. So we've talked about stuff before, like the bard and everybody like being concerned about the bard. It's like, well, he's just in the side adventure, and if you want to use him, you can, but you don't have to. Like he doesn't have to be the star. So I think that's very accommodating to people who are easing back into it, but it also offers like new options for people who are coming in for the first time who don't have um that baseline for what HeroQuest ought to be. Like for them, it could be anything. So their expectations are not necessarily set. So cultivating that audience, I think they've done a good job with. So I think it was maybe like a bad. Well, we're getting to good things first. So that's it. That's that's me. Go for it. I know your time is valuable.
That's pretty on point. I see no reason
Thanks.
to oppose any of that. That's all fair.
Rantcast.
Honesty and peaceful arbitration cast. No, it
Yeah.
that was fine. I mean, I agree with all of that. That's I think there are members in that team that are because Avalon Hill's not like a huge company, and it's also not a new company. They've been around for longer than a lot of folks might think. Their name is on a lot of contemporary stuff, but they've been around a while. Not like a
Well,
like 20 years, but
19,
like
I was going
they
to say
go back.
1997, right? I believe is
yeah,
when they.
the new, yeah, because the original Avalon Hill, like they got a brand new team in '98. That's what I read. I mean, they say a lot of stuff you read online isn't true, but yeah, go ahead, go ahead.
But they're not quite what I would think would be big enough to start selling out. Like it would be way too soon, way too fast. Their projects are pretty humble. I mean, humble in terms of humble's not the right word. They're down to earth projects. I mean, you have Betrayal at the House on the Hill, which has an expansion and this legacy edition that's really cool. They're no strangers. The developers, the designers aren't any strangers to working in interesting mechanics and stuff that could break the game if you're not careful, and sometimes does break the game, but like not in a game broken way, but in a well, this is one of the scenarios, and this is just how it's played. Your game is now super meta, and if you landed on this scenario during your playthrough of Betrayal, then you guys are going to be rolling with laughter tonight because it's not going to be a typical game of Betrayal. Which I mean, no two games of Betrayal are the same anyway.
I've never
Um,
played that, but I see they did make a Scooby Doo mod of it recently.
Yeah, and
But it's
they're
like
no
in
strangers
stores.
to collaborating with other IPs too. So there's some precedent for your Games Workshop dream.
Yeah,
Okay,
make it happen, guys.
I believe. Anyway, um, so I didn't see them necessarily. I didn't really see the possibility being all that likely of this going south right after it launched. And I mean, I had no idea that because I before this, I never frequented the old inn. I never joined any HeroQuest communities. I was never a part of any of that stuff. I just figured all this stuff out on my own. I didn't know that there were so many folks that were like so into the homebrew and sharing all their stuff and their experiences, and which is awesome. But I also, even if I had been a part of that community, would have had no idea that they were so outspoken and loud about every little thing. And I see that a lot
Yeah.
because I run a mixed gaming channel, that has a lot to do with game development. So
Mhm.
that sort of thing's not unique at all to HeroQuest or even board games. It's just everywhere all the time. So there are particularities in that sort of uh, how do I say, in that train of thought, I guess would be the nicest way to say it. It's just part of jumping to conclusions, and it's fine, but, like, after you get done jumping, what are your solutions to that? What do you hope to see? What kind of constructive feedback, pre-feedback could you give to that board game developer or game developer for the designers to see and take seriously because you worded it, in a constructive way, and you can show them that you're ready to vote with your dollars instead of just saying, "This is crap. I'm gonna tell all my friends not to get it because the goblins are female now." I don't know, whatever kind of weird reason you might have that
Wait,
would
did
make
you just
the
say the goblins are female?
half of the
I
goblins
gotta.
are female.
All
Half of
right,
the goblins are
I'm gonna box this up and return it now. I can't believe it. I'm
only
kidding. I'm
half.
kidding.
Only half. So I'll take them. I'll take them off your hands. I'll take a
Well, actually, if you have the mythic, I think you could have an all male game if you
absolute. You
wanted to.
can. You can.
If you want to have an all
And
female game, you wouldn't necessarily be able to.
I
Unless,
mean,
well, unless you'd have to be like, because you can still do that. Like, oh, the monster gets killed, you just put the next one is that
yeah,
same miniature.
yeah. I mean, when you
People
play
run
my
to room to
HeroQuest
room.
games, there are goblin harems everywhere.
Loop that one out. All right. Hey, I'm glad that you didn't use a certain word that sometimes gets thrown around for communities. Toxic. People say, "Oh man, this community is toxic. These
No, I
toxic
don't
fans."
I don't think that's the case at all with any of this. I don't think
Yeah.
anybody's been toxic. There's been some folks who they see stuff and they kinda jump to conclusions, and that's
Oh
natural,
yeah.
I
especially when
wouldn't.
you see beloved property and then you see a completely different aesthetic.
Protective. People are protective.
Yeah,
I
and
wouldn't say
maybe
toxic either. I would say more like you guys said, defensive at times, or uh, like Kurgan was bringing up. Um, sometimes when things change, we bring this a lot in Star Wars. When things change, people get more confused and upset than welcoming to certain changes. But um,
Yeah. Yeah,
that can
and
be.
some of it. Sorry.
Go
I hate
ahead.
that. And I was gonna say, like, and I hear what you're saying, but at the same time, like, some people can mishear even that. Is like, oh, so you're saying we don't like change? Like, you know, like if you don't like change, you must be like stuck in the past. But I can see there's a wider issue, which is that if you're selling a product where your main selling point is nostalgia, like, okay, you can just rehash a product and you can rehash it so many times before people are tired of it again. Or, okay, well, I just wanted to taste. I didn't want that up in my face. Like, okay, you can stop now. And like you've lost it. Like there has to be something that after the nostalgia kind of fades away, or you get new people in that are not part of that. How are they going to like it? So in a sense, you almost have to boil down the original product as the owner of the IP. You have to boil it down to what were the attractive elements that made it good or made it so appealing in the first place. And if you can recreate those, you can just kind of like keep going with the product. Whereas I hate to say it, well, actually, I don't hate to say it. I hate that it exists, but I feel like Disney with Star Wars, not to get back on that topic, is rather than like being able to boil it down, I feel like they just copy it. Like all they know how to do is buy it and copy it. And
Cookie
so
cutting.
some of it
Cookie.
hits. Yeah, cookie cutting. So some of it hits and it's like, oh yeah, that's the Star Wars I remember, and then other stuff is just like, what the hell?
Some
What
of
are you
it, you
doing?
roll your eyes so hard that you're in
Yeah,
another dimension.
and then people get mad, and then they get into fights with each other, these fans back and forth, and it's like, well, yeah, you forgave these flaws when they were in the original trilogy. Why do you know? And it's just like, no, I was hoping that like we'd be past that now. Like I can forgive it because it was the first movie, and on and on and on. So with a game, I guess the strength of a board game like HeroQuest is that somebody put it this way a couple of times is like when two fans meet up in the HeroQuest community, it's like I don't want to hear your homebrew rules. I want to see them so that I can change those into my homebrew rules. Like I'm gonna just take inspiration and then make it my own. So like everybody has almost their own game.
Yeah.
Y- You know, like I take somebody's cards and it's like, man, I really like this, but like these two cards don't make any sense. So I'm gonna chuck
But that's
those.
the
I'm
fun,
gonna
right?
modify these slightly. Yeah. So if they recognize that it's like they're just giving a baseline. They're just like giving you the fuel, and then you're taking it and making something. So if they come down too hard on the community and say this is how it's going to be and that's it, like that would rub a lot of people the wrong way. I mean, maybe some other games can be like that, but HeroQuest can't.
I
So it has to have a framework, and then
I
yeah, I'm
can't
going on.
imagine any
You
board
tell me.
game where anybody would say that though. Like any game.
These are
You
the
can't
official
stop.
tournament rules. But yeah, the tournament rules, but everybody else's rules are not like that. Monopoly has like I have like the Monopoly from the 80s and it has like three variants of the game in the same box. So it's
But you
like
can still play
already
Monopoly, the original Monopoly, with that Monopoly. But that's the great thing about board games. So I think we brought this up before. Is
yeah.
the big thing about board games to me is it's the same thing. To me, it's the same rules as like. And I know this is a sin probably, but it's the same thing with like D&D, right? You could have a bunch of people come over and say, "Well, these are the rules." I'm like, "Okay, well, I'm the DM, and the rules are the rules that I say."
Yep.
You know, I'm laying down the law here. Like you could have a big old sheet that says them's the rules for this here
No
board game.
rules
That's
lawyering at the table. Yeah.
Them's the rules for this here game, y'all.
yeah,
Exactly. You put that
and
cowboy hat on, you lean back in your chair, that's it.
and they could shove as many rules as they want in there, but really at the end of the day, it's your game, you know,
I
and
Yeah.
agree and disagree with that.
well, and like I
Finish
said,
before I
and I
Brandon.
and I'll add a little spice to that there. I don't go too overboard with something like that, but like when me and Kurgan do the stuff on Saturday night, there's a little bit of like extra RKOing into our
Mm-hmm.
our Hero Quest, and that's for fun, but like, I'm not like making it so that like your character's invincible or like they go Super Saiyan and jump across the board or I don't know, like stuff like that. But
We try
it's
to keep it going.
yeah, you keep it going, make the pacing fun and enjoyable. But you know, there
Try
might
to
be
reward creativity.
something that like a friend has that they do in their game that might be fun for you. And that's what I'm saying is like it's the great part about HeroQuest I think is community. It's the thing that brings people together. Um,
Yeah.
I think it defeats that whole thing with movies and video games sometimes is that you can put a board game down, you can share your different rules and your
your
different
game.
yeah,
That
it's
even separates it from video games because
yeah.
Much more.
you can
Yeah.
rarely do that
You don't have to
in a
learn to
video game.
code. Yeah.
No.
And I'm like looking at you across the board versus like, yeah, I'm just like cussing at you into my headset or well, I guess you get that with couch gaming. You can
I
like
was gonna say
jab the
I
guy in the
grew up on
stomach
couch co-op, so I'm cussing
or
at you
back in my
from a
day.
cushion away
Yeah. Like, we're
while I
both
look
sitting
at
at
your
the
screen to make
arcade
sure.
machine. Yeah. No screen peeking. Right. Yeah. You're at the arcade and you're like elbowing the guy and he's like, hey, quit crowding me on this side, whatever.
Good old
Yeah.
N64 days.
Yeah, as long as your party is willing to come back for that second game, you did right.
It's like,
If you dextered it, if you
we want,
dextered it, not to bring up
we're going to
Dexter
be
again, but You do run that risk of, next week's party is gonna be made up of completely different people because, I
We killed
ticked
them
off
all.
Tony and Rob pretty
Oh yeah,
badly,
we
and,
lost them. Well, you see, we voted Kurgan off the island because he screwed us all over. So Amalgamash is going to be the new, kinder, gentler Zargon. And you're like,
Yeah, but you know
haha,
that
you didn't
that
defeat us.
Kurgan got angry last time he came over and threw and broke my controller, so it's okay. I won't be missing that guy anytime soon. No, I'm
Yeah,
just kidding.
yeah, screw that guy. Yeah, you could have arguments at the board. Hey, I got a question. Because I really want this to turn into like just negativity central. I'm totally kidding. We
let's
spent
do
our
it.
last our last rant cast talking about how it's not all negative. Oh, he's putting see the gloves are off now. They're
Bring it.
on. Let's see.
Like,
Um. Okay, I want you, Amalgamash, Mr. Positivity, Mr. Constructive, Mr. Like, see the best in things. Can you pick out the three worst things about HeroQuest?
about
And
which
don't say
edition? Anything? The whole thing as a
don't and
the
don't
IP as
say
a whole?
because I haven't collected them all yet, but I'm working on it.
The
um,
IP as a whole?
I would say
The
you could
entire
break it down like the community. So what's the worst thing about the community? What's the worst thing about the remake HeroQuest, and what's the worst thing about the classic HeroQuest?
Oh, and there go the subs. No, I'm just kidding.
this should be when the subs come on, because then now they gotta be like,
Ooh,
"What's he gonna say?"
he's honest. Yeah, it's like what you say will
So
determine the
the
future of
the
your
first
channel.
point was community, what were the other 2?
Um, the remake itself. So like how the game itself is now,
The
and
community and
then
the reboot,
the
uh,
community, the new game, and the old game.
and the old game. The
Yeah.
worst part about the old game was that it's too dang inaccessible. You have to have money and some privilege to be able to get it.
Yep. Yep.
Once
Just
you
be darn
have
lucky.
original pieces, I mean, you're set. But I mean, if you're not worried about the original pieces, I guess it is pretty accessible. You can just go substitute whatever you want for whatever you want. You just need a copy of the rules. You just need to be able to be willing to sub and proxy the heck out of all of your cards and figurines. And if you go down that road, that's fine. If you have a 3D printer, put on your eye patch and get your peg leg and parrot, and power to you. I will not. I'm not going to throw any hate your way because those things are out of print. But worst part, probably just it's easy to say, "Hey, I wanna sell my old copy of the game because it needs a better home, and I don't play it anymore, and I wonder if I can get $800 for this expansion." That's
Oh
too
Yes,
my
you
bad.
can.
gosh.
It's
Oh
not
wow.
really HeroQuest's fault, but, it
No.
it does facilitate that sort of
Oh, they
evil
shouldn't have
in the
been out of
hearts of
print for
men.
30 years. Yeah, it's like, hey, your grandma needs that surgery.
That's
Your
this
dog is got
the
needs its
worst part of
shots.
the worst
Yeah.
thing about classic HeroQuest is the exact same thing that's wrong with classic Warhammer Quest. Except
Oh
Warhammer
man.
Quest, it's a little bit worse, and I'm
Yeah. Well,
still
it
struggling
was
to try to get
there
that
and
money
gone again.
together.
Well, and you've been making some acquisitions, so you've been kind of lucky there. But yeah, I've bought as
Oh,
much stuff as I can, other
some
than
of it's luck, some of it's I'll try to mark this up as an expense later.
you don't have to tell us the things that you've done that you're not proud of.
These if these Orcans could talk.
Oh man. Okay, so with that out
I'll
of the way,
DM you later.
Oh man.
Anyway,
oh
It's getting hot in
man.
here.
All right. Be safe
the
out there, people. Okay,
the
so
new the
yeah.
re-release, the new edition. The worst thing about the new edition is it's too dang inaccessible. There's just so many things that people want that they can't have because of lack of foresight. And
Ah,
the
and not just
exclusivity.
the
I
Guardian Knight.
understand the exclusivity. I understand that. I understand why that was a perk. I understand crowdfunding. I would have done the same thing. I wouldn't have changed anything about that at all. I want my
I
backers
would
to
have
feel
given
like they
them more
got something
time.
special.
I would have given them 6 more
But
months.
yeah, it didn't have the scope, the global scope that a lot of people wished it had. I still get comments on the
Mm,
channel on several
yeah,
different videos that are like, "I'm over here in this name a country, and
yeah.
I don't have my copy, and I hope I can get the Zargon app at some point." And I mean,
Yeah.
sure, the Zargon app is
Well,
worked on by two passion project. I respect the heck out of them for doing it.
Yeah, and that's
Wonderful
not
developers,
globalism. I mean,
but like
sorry, that
it,
the game
it's
was always international.
there's
So
so
like
many folks who want it and they can't have it, and that's too bad
back in the
because
day,
there's nothing you could do about it, right? Except wait and hope that some
import
kind
it,
soul
spend
will
all your money,
sell it
import it,
on
not have
eBay
it
or
in your language.
and it again becomes, well, do I
Yep,
want that
evil in the
kidney?
hearts of men.
I don't need
Yeah,
that kidney. My grandma doesn't need her kidney. Um, and that's I mean that it's not a huge point of contention. I think that they're doing great with the property. I think that aesthetically it looks great for what it is. It's not Games Workshop, which I have a bias towards all that 90s aesthetic. I love the Dark World, Legend of Zagor, uh, Warlock, Key to the Kingdom. I love all of these things. Man, that's just me. That's just my preference. I understand that's not going to be the aesthetic today, and that's totally fine. If I want that aesthetic, I'll go grab my classic stuff and I'll play it when I'm in the mood.
but hey, if
And
you like Final Fantasy and World of Warcraft, yeah, we got a surprise for you.
probably a lot closer to World of Warcraft for sure.
I'm just thinking of
Um,
big swords. I know that's not just Final Fantasy that does that,
Final Fantasy doesn't have orcs. If
but
they have
they got
goblins.
big swords.
Yeah, they do have big swords. That's
Vulgar.
okay. I can forgive a big sword. I've watched plenty of anime. The big
It's
sword does nothing for me anymore.
how you
That's
use it.
you can clip that one out. Um,
It's all
and
in.
the
All in.
this has been just a train wreck for me so far, hasn't it?
Yeah.
The
Don't worry,
this
no one
never
watches our channel. Just
this
kidding.
never happens to me. Um, it does, but it all
You
gets
blow
on
up
the
after
cutting room
this.
floor and swept under the rug. The last thing, community, you guys are fine. All the community's great. I can't pick out anything bad about you because you don't act any differently than so many other communities. In fact, your behavior is above and beyond that of so many other communities. And it might have a lot to do with it just being, we happen to be in this narrow demographic of in our 30s and 40s, and like we were nerds and we had nothing but like love for the game, and you wouldn't even be playing it or have even heard about it unless you were in this particular mindset or part of this very particular group. So maybe we just have it in us to be sort of more communicative and able to talk about this stuff and not like blow up. Some people have blown up, but it's not, like you said, it's not toxic. It's just it
No.
sucks. Too bad because of the
Yeah.
accessibility. And that's not
Yeah.
a bad point against any of the communities or the person themselves. It's just, whoops,
Brilliant.
sorry. That's it. Those are my 3 negative points. The gloves are back
Brilliant.
off.
Sub to
Didn't even
Amalgamash.
bruise a
Pass the
knuckle.
test. Pass the test. No, I couldn't find anything in there that you said that I would disagree with. Not that we have to agree on things, but
Nah, I don't.
definitely right.
I don't. I don't find too much wrong with that either. I no, like I said, and you can correct me if I'm wrong here. I always found Avalon Hill and Hasbro to be kind of like that same game developer relationship, where Hasbro was kind of the publishing company, and Avalon Hill was kind of that developer company. So it was kind of like they were kind of given a deadline. They had strict, they have limitations, right? They have limitations. They have resources on what they can do. And I've talked to Kurgan about this on a couple rant casts, and um, you know, kind of explain the fact that I really think it's just chalked up at the end of the day to um, I really think that out of all the things Hasbro sells, I think HeroQuest is really not all the way up there at the top of their list.
No,
And
Nope.
so being at not the very bottom, but pretty down there, and not just based on statistics or whatever numbers they crunch. There's a set of resources. There's a set of um, there's a budget. There's probably some sort of focus group they use, and there's probably some small amount of development hell they go through,
oh yeah,
because they probably have to answer to Hasbro every now and then. So,
yeah,
and like us with our jobs, with a lot of game development jobs, you don't always have full control. So
mm-hmm.
I I feel like and this is also coming from my business experience too. I feel like you don't always have, um, you never always have the full control of the story. You don't always have full control of the product. So as much as they wanted to probably market out to more people, Hasbro probably gave them the suggestion, oh, hey, you should probably market out to younger people, as younger people are the demographic for most newer products. And, they're probably looking and saying, well, the demographic for HeroQuest mostly is, people ages 30 and up, or, probably based on what they knew or what they learned. And like I said, correct me if I'm wrong. I'm just kind of pulling examples here, but and like they
we don't know.
probably got pulled in the other
know.
direction. So I like I've said to Kurgan, I wouldn't be advertising on TikTok for HeroQuest.
You wouldn't advertise on TikTok for any board game, though.
No.
We have to reel it in and make it a little more fair.
But I wouldn't be, I wouldn't be advertising for just about anything on TikTok. But the big thing is
dance.
These orcs, yeah, you beat me to it.
Thing.
Yeah.
Subscribe to my Big Orc Hands. I'm at Big Orc Hands on TikTok.
But with that, with that, just saying that, like, yeah, while I do have a lot of negatives on some hands, I do had to agree with Amalgamash and say that they have done a lot of work, building from what I can see from, because Kurgan has the system. I'm planning on getting my own eventually, whenever I can grab one. And
one of us.
Yeah.
One of us.
And it looks like they're still making a decent product, if not making probably a better product from the older one. So
in some ways.
Yeah. But with that, it's almost 7. I know that you had an hour slot with us. My time has been reduced to an hour. So, Amalgamash, if you want to properly plug in your channel here, that would be wonderful, because I probably did a horrible job of introducing you today. So, go ahead whenever you're ready.
Yeah, you did a fantastic job. I just run a mixed gaming channel on YouTube, and that's a phrase that I've been trying to use to describe it lately. And the video that I put up today, which was called something along the lines of how or why would a TTRPG like HeroQuest be used for game development, would pretty well sum up my thoughts on what my channel is right now.
Okay.
Just trying to get people inspired to make stuff, even if there are strong critics out there. Worry about that. Just get out there and make something first. And it focuses a lot on game development. And I've been looping in the tabletop RPG aspect because HeroQuest, due to the way it facilitates creativity and bringing in players and Zargons and challenging those Zargons and rewarding those Zargons to make new quests and artifacts and homebrew of all kinds on their own, it is kind of like a video game engine in that regard. It's a board game engine, an adventure, tabletop, dungeon crawling engine. So once I had that realization, I'm like, I gotta make consistent work on this for sure.
Awesome.
Seems to work out.
Yeah, man.
Well,
I definitely. Oh,
go
sorry.
ahead,
I was
no,
gonna
go
say
ahead.
I definitely, Amalgamash, you were definitely top on the list for like people I wanted to interview, and I was proud to have you as our first interview on HeroQuest fans on YouTube.
Very nice.
Well, twitch.tv/HeroQuest fans and also YouTube. XSC3 home of HeroQuest fans. There's definitely a lot of other guys I want to get in to, people who have consistently done quality videos about HeroQuest, but unfortunately most of them are in the UK. So we've got the time difference. So hey, it's a lot easier to get a hold of you than those guys. So just because we had to do a midweek. Yeah.
Never.
But I would do it. I would definitely do it. And whatever happened to the Bardic broadcast? Like that guy he's growing out a super beard. He's gonna come back someday. It's gonna be like sweep behind him like a cloak. He's just gonna like own all of our channels. But until that day, we'll just do what we do.
He is the inevitable chaos that shall consume all.
Yes.
As it is written, all we can do is fight against that inevitability to a fruitless end.
Just push back the darkness just a little bit longer.
The
Yeah.
darkness of Bardic's beard.
Yeah.
Who are some of the folks that you'd like to have? Sir Death Vids?
Um,
Always bored, never boring.
Sir David the Vids. Yeah. Always bored, never boring. I'd like to get Stephen Baker.
Hmm.
Let's see. I'm trying to think. There was like, I don't know if the painting guys, like, because I feel like if I talked to those guys, I would just be like, I wouldn't have much to say to them because I'm such a beginner at painting. I don't know. I'd have to think about it, but definitely those folks.
Pretty sure
Think
there's
about it.
a lot of
Think about it.
questions you'd be able to ask there, Kurgan.
Because, yeah, they don't.
That's true.
I'm sure they would love to talk about their love for the game and why they are so inspired to paint it.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
Absolutely.
you said
Squidmar. There's a guy.
with that, guys, I hate to cut it off short, but
Next Randcast.
yes, nice Rantcast. Amalgamash,
Yeah.
once again, I want to thank you so much for joining us.
Oh.
And Kurgan, like always, a pleasure to have you with me.
Thanks, guys. Definitely great. Definitely worthwhile.
So go check him
comment,
out.
subscribe, and
Yeah.
join these guys. Because
Rate,
otherwise,
comment, and
those
subscribe.
Hulk hands are gonna just reach out through the screen, and yeah, you just don't want to know.
And you don't want it. Yes, exactly. You're getting it. You are
You
getting
don't want
it.
to find out.
Oh, my TikTok just dinged. I got a new subscriber.
They
Cool.
could, if they could see, those Orcans could see, or tell stories, I guess, as he likes to.
Stories they would tell.
All right. Thank you
And the
guys very
Frozen
much
Horror
for
looks
having
like
me.
it's
Yeah,
definitely
no
going to
problem.
be chilling us all August 1st. So, oh, quick question: are either of you going to Gen Con this year? I'm guessing not.
Probably will not be there.
All
Yeah,
conventions happen on the weekend, and the weekend is when I have to work at my day job. Ugh.
But guess what? I stream on the weekends, so if people are there and want to send me crap, like, scrambled video from your hotel room of all the
Yes.
cool stuff you find out and shouldn't be
Please.
telling anyone, but you're going to tell me anyway,
Yes.
send it our way.
Do
And
that.
definitely check us out, HeroQuest Discord, and Amalgamash, you have your own Discord. Not
Yeah,
to draw this
well,
out any
yeah, I
longer,
do.
but
The Amalgam Archive. It's less relevant here, but you're absolutely welcome to come there and chat with me because I do hang out a bit there. I keep an eye on it. It's quiet, and that's fine for now.
we got the bus of Discord for, of course, our benevolent host, the Strange Bus. So, all right, I guess that's it then, right?
Indeed.
Thank you
With
so
that, I'll thanks everybody for watching, and I'll see you guys on the bus next time. Take care, everybody.
Bye.
Brandcast.
You did.
Excellent.